Good evening, Fanatics and Doctor Who fans or Whovians. Welcome to Fanatics of Film. My name is Joe, and tonight going to talk to you a little bit about a couple of new things to happen in the world of Doctor Who for all my Whovian brethren and sisters out there. The first thing I'm going to talk about is basically the final release of one of the legendary unfinished episodes of Doctor Who. Mainly legendary because it's very rare for them to actually not finish an episode. But tonight we're going to talk about, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the classic Fourth Doctor story, Shada. That's right, I said Shada. Shada is a Fourth Doctor story with his companion Romana II, who is a fellow Time Lord. It was a story that went out in 1979, or was supposed to go out in 79. It was originally written by Douglas Adams, the author of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series and the Dirk Gently novels. Douglas Adams had been a script editor on Doctor Who for a time before moving into screenwriter for the show. He had actually, in the same season, he had two episodes. The first one being City of Death, which is a classic story that has a nice villain played by... for some reason, his name is eluding me right now. Julian Glover. Hello, Julian Glover. You might not know the name, but you would know the face, as he was a villain in The Empire Strikes Back, as well as the main villain in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. It also featured, City of Death also featured a cameo by John Cleese. The second story that Douglas Adams wrote, Shada, ended up dropping out of production due to a strike at the BBC with the Labour Department. And even though something like 75% of the show had been shot, it had been abandoned. In fact, the only footage of this program to actually air on television was in the 1983 20th anniversary special, The Five Doctors, being that none of the footage had ever been shown. The BBC wasn't able to persuade Tom Baker to come back for this multi-Doctor anniversary story. Instead, they used clips from the abandoned episode, explaining that the Doctor was in another adventure and trapped in time in what they call the Time Eddy, and was unable to join the first, second, third, and fifth Doctor in their adventure. Then in 1994, the episode was finally released on VHS. All the finished footage was assembled into as best in order as following the script as they could, with new music commissioned. And Tom Baker himself was narrating to link the missing footage. Shada, again, got released in a novelization format, pretty much attributed to Douglas Adams. By the way, Douglas Adams had taken this concept, the storyline of Shada, and had worked it out into becoming the first episode, or first novel of the Dirk Gently series. But in 2002, so 2002, there was another adaptation of Shada that was done with two companies, the BBC and their web division, their animated web division, BBCi, did an animated version of the Shada storyline featuring Lalla Ward reprising her role as the second Romana, and it also featured Paul McGann, the Eighth Doctor, as the Doctor instead of Tom Baker, and as a nod to the 20th anniversary episode, The Five Doctors, explaining how Paul McGann was the Doctor in this story. In the prelude to the web series, that's actually not in the novel, Paul McGann, the Eighth Doctor, has this feeling of deja vu that he's done these events before, but somehow they were never finished, and that kind of explains the whole Time Eddy and the Fourth Doctor being trapped and everything, just because we fans love to tie it all together. All the weird anachronisms from the long-running history of the show we try to tie together. At the same time this BBC animated series was going out on the web, Big Finish Audio, which is a studio in England that does audio dramas based on properties such as Dark Shadows, The Tomorrow People, Blake Seven, Torchwood, which is a spin-off of Doctor Who, and Doctor Who itself. They took that audio and with Paul McGann and Lalla Ward for the animated series, or rather vice versa. The animated series took it from the audio drama. They essentially turned it into an audio drama. So now that means there's four versions of this. There's the footage that was remaining from BBC's vaults that was assembled with Tom Baker's narration. There was a novelization, there's an animated web series, and an audio drama, but it doesn't end there. Late last year, at the end of 2017, the BBC decided to release another definitive version of Shada, um, using the existing live action footage, but assembling the original cast, who are all still alive and well, to do the dialogue they never recorded set to new animation, done by BBC's in-house animation studio. And it is just super fantastic. Sorry, I'm going to delete that there. This is the cover of the DVD release of Shada, if you can see that behind me. Blink. That's some cool artwork there. That's been released now in the UK on DVD and Blu-ray. Won't be dropping in the US, unfortunately, until this September, and it'll be DVD only, because I guess we're not good enough to get the Blu-ray. So I would just like to take a moment to appeal to the BBC. Please, please, please give us the Blu-ray. And give us the Blu-ray of the 8th Doctor movie as well. I know it's out in England. You can't hide it from us fans over across the Atlantic here. We want it. Please give it to me so I can give you my money, because you want my money. So there's also this really amazing steelbook cover that has been released in Britain that, of course, is not coming overseas. It's fetching a very high price on Amazon and eBay right now. I believe it is region free, so it will play on Blu-ray players here in the U.S. But this artwork, I mean, that's like a cover of a Mondo release or a Scream Factory or Criterion. Like, it's just awesome. Look at that. Look at that detail. So much of the story conveyed just right there. The animation is really, really cool. Professor Kenotis, that's one of the characters. I'm going to show you a few bits of the animation here. The Doctor and Romana. Very good likeness, I think, of Tom Baker and Lalla Ward. In fact, Tom Baker actually appears in the final segment of the adventure as the Doctor in a scene that he never got to film, with a really, really good lines, really good way to end the series. It doesn't matter that he's now 40 years older. It was so good to see him back in the scarf and the coat and talking to K9, and it was so much fun. Normally, Doctor Who episodes, classic series, which would be the first 27 seasons of the show, were broken up into episodic formats, meaning a single storyline might take, on average, 4 to 6 episodes to tell. However, the show has done 2 and 3 episodes, storylines, as well as up to 12 episode storylines. So this was originally set to be a 6-part story, but with the Blu-ray release, they decided to, the Blu-ray and DVD release with the animation, the BBC decided to release it in what they call an omnibus format, which means that all the episodes are linked together into one 2-hour and 20-minute adventure, which is a lot of fun. That's how they used to air Doctor Who in the early to late 90s here on our PBS station, our local PBS station, would air the omnibus format before they eventually went back to the half-an-hour serialized format. It was just a way of plowing through hundreds of episodes in a couple of years as opposed to a decade or less. Probably less, but still. Another cool bit of animation here. It's really cool that it'll go from this live action to an animated format. A little animated K9 there. The BBC also commissioned some new music as well as some new modeling effects that were done in the style of the original series, but no matter how much they tried to recreate the old school ski-wompiness of the poor effects of the original series, they just can't, and the modeling effects still look better than anything that would have been done by the BBC effects studio back in the late 70s and early 80s. Here's some clips from the original story. I'm not really going to give you a breakdown of what Shada is. It's actually a very complicated story. Those of you who are diehard Whovians, I'm sure you're fully aware of this, and you've probably already seen it. Even though it's not available in the U.S., you can get it through iTunes, which is where I got it. It's worth watching. It's just, the Fourth Doctor era is one of my favorite eras of Doctor Who. So basically, I'm just plugging Shada, nice little shot of the Doctor and Romana punting in front of Cambridge at the beginning of the story. A lot of light humor in this, typical Douglas Adams fashion. It's not as complicated. I mean, it's more complicated than it probably should be. It involves an alien who is stealing minds from the smartest people in the world in order to control the universe through his thought process. He has an invisible spaceship. I know Tom Baker described that was genius, part of Douglas Adams' genius, because Douglas Adams said, many people can design a visible spaceship, but very few can design an invisible spaceship. I mean, it's genius in its simplicity, and also if you're a Douglas Adams fan, I'm sure you get a chuckle out of that. A little shot of the production, too, while they were actually filming. Very few actual production photos that are available to view. I thought it was pretty interesting to get a slight behind-the-scenes footage. And of course, the perennial favorite for a very long time, Tom Baker, the longest-running Doctor, the fourth Doctor, 7 series over 7 years, from 1974 to 1981. He's the one who's become most synonymous with the show, and I feel like he himself, the actor Tom Baker, has a bit of a proprietary stance towards it, and that's fine. It's always good when he makes a return to the show, which is very rare. The 50th anniversary special in 2013 was the first time he had been involved with the program since leaving it, and it doesn't matter that he's aged. He's still all teeth and curls, and he's just got that captivating smile and that odd alien attitude that just really helped redefine the Doctor. Professor Chronotis, central character to the Shada storyline. He's also a renegade Time Lord like the Doctor. Used to be a criminal by the name of Sally Avon. It's just a really fun story that has a lot of twists and turns. I suggest you check that out. And moving on, what I'm really here to talk about is the new Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. Not so much about the new Doctor as much as about the new logo that just dropped on the BBC earlier this week, or maybe it was on the weekend. Sadly enough, I feel like I should punch myself in the face for being a day or two behind. I'm supposed to be on this stuff. I mean, this is my jam. Like, Doctor Who's my thing, and it has been since I was 16 years old, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am now. Let's just say I'm old. So the grays should give it away. But the new logo is really impressive. Here we've got the trailer for it, which you can see on YouTube. It's about 16 seconds long, so it's really just a mean tease. But it's interesting. It seems to be a slight variation of the theme song, possibly the new interpretation of the theme. I don't know. I hope it is, because it sounded fantastic, otherworldly, and typical Doctor Who. Seeing the TARDIS travel through this weird space crystalline formation through what is to become the Doctor Who logo was extremely exciting. Here it expands. This is the new logo, folks. For at least the next few years, this is the logo we're going to see that's going to match Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. She is Jodie Whittaker from the television series Broadchurch and the film Attack the Block. Is officially the first female Doctor in the long canon of the series, which has divided some fans. Some fans do feel like it could possibly be pandering to the political climate. Some fans feel that it's absolutely necessary to change the Doctor. Will it change the nature of the show? I don't know. My main concern is, I think Jodie Whittaker is really attractive. I've never thought of the Doctor in any kind of attractive, sexual kind of... I don't want to think about the Doctor in that way, so I hope that they can avoid this, folks. The Doctor doesn't need to become a sex symbol. As long as Chris Chibnall, the writer of Broadchurch, who has written for Doctor Who and Torchwood, the sister series, he's a capable enough writer that I believe he'll keep the core of who the Doctor is without really changing it very much, regardless of gender. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you are a Doctor Who fan and you have a problem with change, this is not the show for you. Because Peter Capaldi may be the last male Doctor we see for a very long time, if at all, or the last white male actor to play the role for a very long time. Personally, I hope that eventually we start playing around with different ethnicities too, because why not? We now know that the Doctor can change form and gender. It just opens up a whole new universe. I admit that I did have reservations at first, simply because of possibly my own misinterpretations of what they can do with the character. It is a relatively new concept within the show's continuity, long continuity, that Time Lords can change their form when they regenerate, as well as or can change their gender as well as their form. Just for those of you who don't really know Doctor Who too well, and I would imagine that if you're watching this, you're probably looking at me going, yeah, we know all this. Regeneration is something that the Doctor's alien race, the Time Lords, can do. When their bodies break down and are dying, they can rearrange their molecules, or their cells at a molecular level, to build themselves essentially a new body. to continue to go on living. We now know that sometimes the faces aren't chosen at random. Subconsciously, they pick a face that they've encountered, which would explain why over the series we've seen several actors guest starring on the show who've now become the Doctor. So it's a fun concept. I have to admit, though, I do have a slight problem with Jodie Whittaker's costume. It is a little hipsterish for me. I don't mind the suspenders. That's the braces. Very common with a lot of the different Doctors. Trench coat, very common. The pants. I don't know about the rolled up. I mean, Matt Smith did it. She's wearing Matt Smith's boots. It's the same designer who designed the last two Doctors' costumes. I do get a bit of a Mork for Mork kind of feeling there, and that kind of bothers me. The only complaint, really, though, the only thing that's really kind of making me kind of cringeworthy about the costume is the TARDIS socks. And I don't mean that they're TARDIS blue socks. I mean, they are literally, that's the top section of the TARDIS right there. You can go to like Hot Topic or Target and buy these Doctor Who socks. Now, I'm willing to bet there'll never be a part of any episode where she kicks off her boots and shows the socks to the camera. It's probably more of an in-joke and an Easter egg for fans in the production. But it's a little meta for me. It kind of reminds me of when they started branding the Doctor back in the late or early 80s, giving them the question mark on the lapels and the question mark pullover and everything. And I was kind of hoping we'd move away from that by now, because they don't need to brand the character. But I also like the redesign of the TARDIS. It's got the, what do they call that? It's basically stating that this is a police box for public use. It's now in black with white lettering as opposed to the reverse white with black lettering. This is something that was common with the second Doctor's run. I love how when the Doctor changes, the theme song changes, the opening sequence changes. Most of the time the companions change, the exterior and the interior of the TARDIS change. And it's just one of the things that I love about this show is, and how they keep it going, is that every few years you get used to the format, you get used to the characters, and then they change it up again, and it just makes the show completely new and refreshing all over again. And then, of course, they always bring back older villains like Daleks and things, because you can't have Star Trek without Klingons. You can't have G.I. Joe without Cobra. You can't have Doctor Who without the Daleks, or the Cybermen, or the Ice Warriors, or the Silurians, or the Master, or the Weeping Angels. I could go on and on and on. Where's the Ronnie, by the way? We want the Ronnie, and we want the Sea Devils back. Just, I mean me, as an old fan. But I'd like to know what you guys think of, if any of you have seen Shada, if you liked Shada, if you're familiar with the original series, if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer any of them if you want to comment below. And also I'd like your thoughts on the new logo and how cool it is. I'm going to go back to that real quick because it's just, oh yeah, new poster art too. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to leave that up because it's got the new logo on it. I'd like to know your thoughts on the new logo as well as the new Doctor. If you're familiar with Jodie Whittaker's work at all, or Chris Chibnall, the new head writer, and if you guys are looking forward to the show. So this is just a little brief cover of the brand new logo. Man, I love it. I love that logo. I love the last logo too, but the DW in the TARDIS shape was a little branding for me. Felt like it was, could have been on a comic book, but this is cool, so I'm looking forward to that. So please let us know what you think, and thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you next time here at Fanaddicts.